All right, hi everybody, and welcome to my third IGTV, the final one of this week, where I'm wrapping up my series on my night eating syndrome journey. So we talked about how it began. Yesterday we talked about all the different things, or on Wednesday we talked about all the different things that I tried to heal it. And then today is the grand final episode where I'm going to talk about what finally brought me freedom from night eating disorder, what I did, the whole journey there. So if you followed along the last one, you'll know that it ended with my major crash last year. And this was a blessing in disguise. So I had just done my last bikini competition. And as I mentioned, I just felt totally off. Like I'd always had a lot of issues with my blood sugar, with certain things just not feeling right. But now it was on another level. I was having really bad sleep, bad night eating, hormonal breakouts around my chin, super bad PMS. If I had like 2 drinks, I had a crazy hangover. Like everything just felt like it was setting off an alarm that something was wrong. I also just was in a constant state of anxiety and stress. I felt wired but tired. I'd wake up in the night wide alert, but during the day it was like dragging through my workouts, just not feeling right. So this whole major crash was what eventually got me to find answers. So as I mentioned, I've been feeling levels of all of these things over the years. So my instinct told me something was wrong. So I started doing tests. So I went to several different doctors, natural doctors. And again, because the health industry is very flawed in many ways, I was like, I know something's off. I know something's wrong with my blood sugar. And often people would say, well, you look healthy. Nothing's wrong. All my basic tests were showing that everything was fine. Eventually, I decided to work with a female naturopath and explained everything I was going through physically. And we looked a little more closely at my results. So while I was not in the official diabetes range, my insulin was flagged. My thyroid was a little on the lower side than we would like it. And this gave me some sort of backing to the fact that I knew something was wrong and could be better and we could work on it. My amazing naturopath also confirmed that it sounded like there were some major issues with cortisol and my adrenals and that I wasn't making this up in my head. So we started on my journey to hormone balancing. I also was doing blood tests. So those little prick blood tests that you can test your blood sugar in the morning. And mine was well over 100, which everyone's going to have a different input on this. But according to some experts, that's in the pre-diabetic range. So I was like, I knew there was something wrong with my blood sugar, and that it was that high in the morning was confirming that for me. So along with the help of my naturopath, I started on a major supplement healing journey. But most importantly, I started really working on my stress levels and my diet. So my healing approach was focusing on, again, it's always a whole body, whole mind thing. I had to focus on my stress levels, my diet, and then the supplementation just to help balance out whatever was wrong. I read a ton of different books on adrenals, thyroid, blood sugar, and just studied this stuff religiously. And what I discovered too is how common all of these things are, especially in women, to have these major imbalances. But again, they're often dismissed by general practitioners and not recognized. But these kind of issues, the adrenal issues, the cortisol issues, these tend to lead to bigger issues down the road. That's when we get those actual big thyroid problems. That's when we get those actual major burnouts where you feel like you can't work out at all and you just are totally zapped. Or again, when we can even get into diabetes, which is dietary, but it's also genetic. It can be caused by stress. There's so many levels to the blood sugar component that aren't often discussed. So big wake up call to me. I just fell in love with this research and had to totally change my lifestyle. So I was coming from being a competitive bodybuilder, so hardcore dieting, hardcore lifting weights, doing that cardio to cut the weight, and just totally overhauled everything. So I cut back on all my workouts. I basically did walking, which is good because walking can eat up excess cortisol. It's not going to raise it up like anything high intensity. I did walking. I did a little bit of light weightlifting. And then dietarily, I really cut out all stimulants. So this is a really scary thing for a lot of people, but I was like, no coffee, no alcohol, no sugar. Went into a really healing diet, really focusing on anything that would nourish my gut, anything that was super blood sugar balancing. So higher fiber, lower carb, really, whole foods based, along with my supplements to help repair some of the damage that had been done. I do need help losing some fat. We're not discussing losing fat today because the focus is on health and repair. And unfortunately, sometimes that aggressive approach to losing fat that we have in our society is very detrimental to our health. And we're a little fat obsessed, I think. So that my focus was not on losing fat. It was on balancing my hormones. But again, like when you are taking care of your body, it responds in so many good ways. So this was a long process, and this is a hard sell to make to anybody, is that it was not an overnight thing. I went through months of frustration, of feeling like nothing was changing, feeling in social events very limited because I wasn't drinking, I wasn't having coffee. It was a big lifestyle change. But with things like night eating syndrome, no worries, Graham. It's a common question. We all want that, but it's really good to focus on our health too. So, yeah, I had this big change, and basically focused on balancing my hormones, balancing my blood sugar, and just, reducing stress overall. A major thing that I did, which I recommend to absolutely everyone, was in the afternoon, instead of reaching for that coffee, and I was training clients back to back in my gym, I would literally close the gate, turn off the lights, and I had like a fleece blanket and a pillow, and I would take a nap. We are in such a hustle culture that teaches us we have to go and burn out, work out harder, go harder. And it is so ineffective to us being balanced, healthy human beings. And that was like my life and my lifestyle for as long as I can remember, is being that kind of person. Like it was my identity. So I had to just shift and be like, okay, this is no longer working for me. My body is obviously giving me a loud signal something is wrong. Night eating syndrome is your body telling you like, hey, something's not right. So I committed. And over time, even just actually when I first started doing all those things, I found I was getting those deep, restful sleeps that I was so hungry for all these years. And my night eating through this, on top of the work I had done before on working on mindset, making sure I was eating enough, I was finally able to, I didn't have to wake up in the night and stop myself. I was actually just sleeping through the night, getting that solid sleep. And I was doing all the things that I had never been told to do, which was slow down, do less, eat more, chill out. Again, our culture says the opposite. And I see this so often with women too, where they're doing so much cardio, they're doing so heavily, and all of these things can negatively impact your thyroid, especially if you already have imbalances, can raise your cortisol level. And that's often when we see women struggling with a lot of mood issues, with excess belly fat, with this feeling of burnout, and they feel like something's wrong with them when they're doing this formula that's been sold to them their whole lives, and it's not working. So many women, whether you're struggling from night eating syndrome or not, can benefit from just reducing stress, possibly reducing the high intensity, or learning about your menstrual cycle and know when to do high intensity, when you can benefit from this, and when your body's probably better off chilling out. But if you are dealing with these hormonal imbalances and you are aware of them, like you have that wired but tired, you have that disrupted sleep, your body's giving you signs that maybe you need to consider these things too. Very common, night eating syndrome or not. So everyone with night eating syndrome that I've talked to varies. Some people it's an obvious hormonal imbalance. Some people it's not eating enough. Some people it's a hardwired habit. So in my journey, I really had to focus on all of it and understand all of it to find total freedom. So eating enough, balancing hormones, working on the brain component to disrupt that pattern. We talked about that in the last session, about how we have these hardwired patterns that we're going to repeat, and we have to totally shift our habits to do that. So this is what I have all my clients do, is we reframe everything, and things like cutting out caffeine, cutting back on your workouts, going into something a little more gentle. None of this stuff has to be forever, but it's just going to help us reframe your habits and get you into that deep, restful sleep that you are craving. And this is something we can benefit from across the board. So for me, this journey over the past year has been amazing. I started to notice improvements right away through my own personal protocol. Again, working with specialists along the way to make sure I was on track with supplements and doing everything right. And then in this past 6 months now, I've just been really focusing on gut health. A lot of us with night eating syndrome have gut health issues. Again, we've had, years of this thing where we're getting up and eating, and that's the time when your body wants to rest and digest. So it's not surprising. Balancing hormones, again, repairing years of damage there. Working on my menstrual cycle, learning how to sync my body with that. Stress and diet. And then I've always done loose macro counting over the past year. And the reason I do this is because it keeps me accountable. So I always want to make sure I'm at least hitting a certain amount of protein, that I'm balancing my fats and my carbs. Now that my blood sugar is regulated through this whole process, I've been slowly able to increase my carbs. I can now have coffee, some sugar, these things I cut out. Again, it's not forever, but I really had to do some rebalancing work, as I do with my clients. And then I let them, as I let myself, reintroduce things. And there you can learn if they're triggers, or you might learn yeah, I can still sleep through the night if I have that cup of coffee, but the anxiety that comes with it is not worth it. So for me, I love coffee, but now it's a treat thing, because I know the anxiety that comes with it for me is just not always worth the price of that delicious latte. But sometimes it is, especially if I'm on vacation. But usually I have my matcha. And for a while I didn't even do that. I went totally caffeine free. I had my dandy blend until I could have some caffeinated beverages and still sleep through the night and realize that I'd progressed enough to be set. So, main things you want to work on if you're dealing with night eating syndrome. We want to work on your mindset. Are you eating enough? Look into underlying hormone imbalances. I discussed my personal imbalances here, but everybody has different ones. So you might want to work with a naturopath, a specialist. When I work with my clients, we focus on the basics, like, are you eating enough? Do we need to maybe add in some supplements? But again, I have them check with their doctor. I'm not a naturopath. I'm not a certified nutritionist. I'm a certified health coach and personal trainer. So I stay in my lane there, but see if maybe there's some things even naturally we can do to balance hormones. Again, cutting back on the high intensity exercise, taking a nap midday, working on stress reducing techniques. With all the fancy stuff I did over the years and hundreds of dollars I spent on freaking supplements, the major, most important things I did was rest more, eat more, balance my blood sugar throughout the day with regular meals and snacks, considering having fiber and fat and good natural foods in there, and cutting back on anything high intensity, along with that high intensity lifestyle, like letting myself just tune into my personal needs. And those have changed over time. Now, especially when I'm in ovulation or certain parts of my cycle, I have crazy energy. I literally ran and danced up a mountain the other day. I honored that, and then when I'm going into my menstrual cycle, my body's like, hey, chill out. I'm going to rest. So learning to tune into my body versus a lot of this stuff that's out there in the health and fitness world, in the world telling us how we should live and be, has been the most valuable beyond anything anyone can sell you. So if anybody is struggling, please, please, please trust the process. I have the whole process laid out in my book, which I'm going to talk about next week. But this, again, whether you're dealing from night eating syndrome or not, I just want to remind you guys all to really honor your body. If you feel like something is wrong, you feel like you have some underlying hormonal imbalances, you're just not feeling like yourself, trust that. Do the work, be patient with the process. And if I can help, I am a coach. I'm here to support you. Don't hesitate to reach out in my DMs. I hope this was helpful sharing my personal story, and we'll continue this conversation all month long. Thank you guys.